Welcome to the Texas Citizen Journal, an island of reason in the sea of political insanity. And now your host, Reagan Reed.
Welcome, everyone, to the Texas Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Reagan Reed, and we have a great show to you today. And, of course, the Citizen Journal show is brought to you by the Texas Citizen Journal and MCPLive.tv. And I want to remind everybody, as always, if you have not subscribed to the channel, be sure to do so. And if you find this content useful, please be sure to like and share, and let me know what you think in the comments. We'd appreciate your feedback. So today we are going to get started about talking about an event, and what else could we talk about than Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. It's something you're seeing in the news all the time, and I think it's going to be one of the bigger stories of the year. So, it's no secret I've long been a big Elon Musk stan, big fan of Elon Musk, and I think that when the history books are written, Elon is going to be one of the most significant figures of the 21st century, if not the most transformational figure of our time. I really think that. And so Twitter arguably is probably going to be among the least important of his ventures. But the acquisition of Twitter is important because even though Twitter is a fairly small social media company, I mean, the worth of a company like Meta or TikTok or these other giants absolutely dwarfs the total value of Twitter. However, Twitter has significant value that goes beyond just raw monetary numbers, in that Twitter has an outsized cultural and political impact, probably more so than any other social media platform. All the journalists are on Twitter, all the politicians' staffs are on Twitter. And so really, I think Twitter is kind of where elite opinion is aggregated. And so by Elon Musk doing that, and if he implements some of these reforms he's talking about, it could get very interesting. And so I've just enjoyed sitting back and watching all the hot takes that have come about because of this decision. Of course, you have everybody on the right side of the political spectrum is overjoyed, and just the jubilation we've seen over the last few days has been amazing. I mean, people on the right are celebrating like never before. On the other side of the coin, you have just the absolute hysteria and just people's heads exploding on some corners of the left, like this is the end of the world, like Elon Musk has bought the whole world. And for a lot of these people, I think that Twitter is their whole world, and so they think that Elon Musk has just taken over everything. And all of these doom and gloom, like this is the end of democracy that Elon Musk bought Twitter, as if this is going to be the only social media platform owned by a billionaire. I think honestly, both the intense jubilation from the right and the mindless hysteria from the left, I think are both overblown. Really, my impression, I do think Elon is going to make some changes, but I think the changes overall that he's going to make are probably going to be minor. And for example, I think, he's talked about implementing an edit button and having more transparency in how the algorithms work and that sort of thing. And I think those are very good reforms. And trust me, there's a lot of ways that Twitter has been made better. But I don't think he's going to do everything that the right necessarily thinks that he's going to do. I do think that there's going to be some level of content moderation. And I would not be surprised if Donald Trump does not return to Twitter. And I think that's a big part of why some people on the right are so mad about Twitter and why they want Elon Musk and why they're so excited about Elon Musk taking it over is I think a lot of them think, oh, Donald Trump's going to be let back on Twitter. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. Maybe it will, but I don't think it's a guarantee. And I would not be surprised at all if Donald Trump remains banned from Twitter. On the side of the left, I truly do not understand the hysteria of those people. about this issue. I mean, what do they think Elon Musk is going to do? Make Twitter worse than it already is? I don't know if that's honestly possible. I mean, Twitter is a godforsaken hell site, and you know, I'm not sure that it could be made worse even if you tried. And so I'm not sure that Elon Musk is going to be able to change a whole lot or improve it by a whole lot. I don't know if there's hope for Twitter, but I think it's great that he's bought it and he's going to try to make it better and improve upon it. And so, you know, for the left to be screaming about this is the end of democracy or whatever, I just think that a lot of that rhetoric is quite frankly ridiculous. And, you know, here's the thing about free speech and Musk. And Musk, I don't think is particularly conservative or liberal. I think he's kind of his own guy. He marches the tune of his own drum, but he professes to be a free speech absolutist and a big proponent of free speech. And here's the thing about free speech. You know, and the left is concerned about, well, misinformation being spread and that sort of thing. Misinformation is the price you have to pay for a free society. And I think that's one of the great things about America and the West, as opposed to a place like China or Russia. It's more of a totalitarian state where the government controls everything that the people get access to. You know, but as a result of free speech, people are going to say crazy things, and there's going to be conspiracies out there, and there's going to be all kinds of kooks that get out and say their thing. But really, I don't think we have a misinformation problem. We have a stupid people problem. Because if the misinformation's out there, you know, and you're stupid enough to believe it, well, that's not necessarily on, you know, that's not Twitter's fault. That's not the platform's fault. That's your fault for believing it. That's your fault for falling for it. And so in my opinion, the solution to the proliferation of misinformation is not more censorship. The solution is more educated people. People need to be able to better identify what's misinformation and what's fact. Because unless you have a better educated, more intelligent populace, you are going to have to deal with misinformation. And I mean, to be fair, honestly, I don't have a lot of optimism for people becoming better educated or more informed, but censorship is not the answer. And the way that you combat misinformation is by just constantly being out there, putting out the correct information, putting out facts. And, you know, you just got to let people decide for themselves, decide what the truth is. And so I'm a big proponent of free speech. And so I am going to be ramping up my activity on Twitter. Honestly, I haven't used Twitter a lot in the past, not a huge fan. And the reason for that is the 240 character limit. Anybody who knows me knows that it's very hard for me to squeeze much of anything into 240 characters. I have a very hard time with that. And so that's why I'm not on Twitter a lot. But like I said, I love Elon Musk and I'm excited about what he's doing. And so I am going to try to be on Twitter more because if it ends up turning into some really important social media platform, that's going to be great. But I would caution people, like I said, to my friends on the right, you know, I don't think he's going to do everything you think he's going to do, and I think he's going to disappoint you at some point or another. And to my friends on the left, chill out. It's going to be okay. I think the hysteria is overblown. And so actually, it was funny, about a day or two after I posted an article essentially saying that, you know, the left and the right were both getting this wrong, Elon Musk put out a tweet, and basically he said, you know, he wants Twitter to be politically neutral, and so he's going to do things with Twitter that are going to make both the left and the right unhappy. And so I thought that was interesting that he put out that tweet, and that's you know, exactly what we predicted at the Citizen Journal. The final thing I'll say about this whole Twitter saga is that I really think that to the extent that Truth Social was ever even a thing, and that's debatable, I do think that Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter is going to be the final nail in the coffin for Truth Social, which, I mean, I don't know. It's more like it was stillborn than, ever much of a thing. I think, the whole reason for having something like Truth Social was that people were being censored on Twitter, and so they wanted to have another place. Well, if Elon Musk opens things up and has the censorship more lax on Twitter, people are going to stay on Twitter. And that's the great thing about all this in a free market. You can have, and I lied. I'm gonna say one more thing about the Twitter thing. You have these people on the nationalist right that you call themselves, these big government conservatives, and they think that government is the solution to various problems in our society. And maybe this is unpopular now, but I'm still the Ronald Reagan school of thought that the most dangerous words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." I think the government is far more often the problem than the solutions. And to the extent that the national conservatives, want to use the power of government to do all these things, I think they're misguided. And I don't even know if they should be calling themselves conservatives, because conservatism, in my view, is all about limited government, smaller government. And so Elon Musk buying Twitter is a great example of why the government's not the solution yet. All these NatCons were saying, well, we should use the power of government to regulate Twitter from regulating what people say on Twitter. And, like I said, I'm not a fan of everything Twitter has done, but I do not think that more heavy-handed government power and more government regulation of Twitter, a private company, was going to be a very good solution. I don't think that was the answer. The answer to the problem of big tech censorship is for free speech proponents like Elon Musk to buy these companies and to reform them that way. And so then, now we've got a free market thing where Elon is going to make these changes and make Twitter a better product because of the free market incentives. And so all these conservatives complaining about these various, companies or whatever, really, they just need to put their money where their mouth is and make change in the private sector rather than trying to get the government involved in these things. Because honestly, if you think you can use the power of government for conservative ends, you're probably mistaken, because once you create a government program, once you give government power over something, they're not going to want to relinquish it. And someday the government may be in the hands of people that you don't necessarily like, and they're going to have that same power and they're going to abuse it. So the best thing is have a small government and let free market entrepreneurs and proponents of free speech like Elon Musk bring the change by private means. So enough on Elon Musk, enough about Twitter. The next thing I wanted to talk about, another big news story, is Kevin McCarthy, congressman from California, current minority leader for the Republican Party, and, well, maybe until this week, was the favorite to become the new Speaker of the House when the Republicans inevitably take over the lower chamber in the midterms. So Kevin McCarthy essentially was caught on tape right after January 6th saying that he was going to go and suggest to then President Trump that he needed to resign because of what happened on January 6th. And McCarthy, said some negative things about Trump and about January 6th. And of course, these things are all highly forbidden in today's Republican Party. Criticizing Trump is the ultimate sin. And so it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen to McCarthy now that this audio has been leaked. Of course, you have the typical deplorables like Matt Gaetz are putting out statements against McCarthy and attacking him now. And Tucker Carlson said that if McCarthy got in, he would just be a puppet for the Democrats as Speaker. And so it really looks like MAGA world is beginning to turn on McCarthy. But I just think it would be ironic, because I agreed with what Kevin said in that. I think Donald Trump was responsible for a lot of what happened on January 6th, and I think he should have resigned after that happened. And so, McCarthy said that. I think that's a perfectly fine opinion, and I think his mind was in the right place. But it's ironic that if he is denied the speakership, which is what he has wanted for pretty much his entire life, if this is what brings him down and this is what denies him the speakership, it's just ironic that it would be the scandal that McCarthy actually thought the right and moral thing in private, and then what he thought in private was exposed, and that is what brought him down. I think that would be very fascinating. Of course, there's a lot of debate as to who leaked this. It could have been a staffer. My personal theory, and I have really no evidence to base this on, but I'm just kind of looking at who benefits from McCarthy being taken down by this. And I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out later that it was Elise Stefanik, the Republican conference chair, that leaked this. No question she's ambitious, and maybe she had this recording or knew about the recording, was able to leak it out there in order to take out McCarthy and position herself to become speaker instead. I don't know. We don't really know, but it's interesting. So anyways, with that, we are going to go to a brief break. And when we come back, we're going to bring it more to the local level. We're going to talk about some of the things on the ballot for May 7th. And we had a high-ranking Montgomery County official arrested on felony charges here recently. So we're going to get into a little bit of that when we come back after the break.
Hello, and welcome to MCPLive.tv. I'm Bill Brenza, and along with Billy Graff, we own and operate MCPLive.tv. Now, we do this as a service to the people of Montgomery County, but like everybody else, we need funding to be able to produce better shows and more shows for you, our viewers. The way we have done that is we have set up an account with Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon, so it's www.patreon.com/MCPLiveTV. If you go on there, you can make a donation to us on a monthly basis. These continuing donations will allow us to improve the content and the number of shows that we're providing to you. You can become a subscriber for as little as $3 per month. So please go ahead and log on to patreon.com and become a subscriber of MCPLive.tv.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. So let's get into the local stuff now. We had big news story on Monday, earlier this week. The director of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for Montgomery County, Darren Hess, was arrested in his office and taken to Montgomery County Jail, booked in there. He was bonded out on a $1,500 bond, but he has been charged with a felony, tampering with a government record with an intent to defraud or abuse is the charge. And that's a state jail felony. And so essentially what they are alleging he did was he has a peace officer's license through I think it's part of the Montgomery County Fire Marshal's office. But anyways, you're required to do ongoing training in order to maintain that license. And so what they're alleging Mr. Hess did was he basically faked a certificate of completion for one of these courses in his ongoing training. And he didn't complete the course. He just took part of it, didn't complete it, forged a Homeland Security document and submitted that to try to pass it off that he had completed the course, when in fact he had not. And so the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, TCOL, was tipped off to this, and they began an investigation into Mr. Hess back in December of 2021, actually. And apparently, some other people in his office had submitted certificates of completion, and the certificate that Mr. Hess submitted didn't match the other certificate. It was different, visibly different than the other documents that had been submitted by other employees. So that was kind of a red flag. And so, anyways, they've been investigating this, and my understanding is that Mr. Hess he's admitted to investigators that he did in fact not complete the course. And so, that's a big deal. That's a felony. It's a big enough deal that, he didn't complete the training required to keep his license, but forging government documents, not advisable. And so he has been suspended by the county, so he's no longer active on the job for the county. And so this is going to be an issue, but I've been interested by how hard they've come down on Darren Hess, but he is by no means an isolated case when it comes to forging these training documents. Now, a number of people who have followed my political career in the past may be familiar with a whole incident with Constable Precinct 4, Rowdy Hayden, over in East County. And so back in 2019, there was a whole issue about him being investigated for, people in his office, but with his knowledge and approval, I guess, not doing training, and then submitting, again, faked certificates claiming to have done the training when they didn't, and they were caught. And so TCOL launched a whole investigation into this, and there was talk about charging him and suspending his license, but there was some issues with the investigators when that happened. And so all said and done, Rowdy Hayden didn't get arrested or charged, but he did get a pretty strong reprimand from TCOL. So they did reprimand him, but it was slap on the wrist. But they did call him out for these problems in his office, and they said the problem had been addressed. There was another example of faking training documents alleged by someone in the sheriff's department. This was a couple years back too. So, what is the deal? This seems like it's a not uncommon problem when you have multiple pretty high up officials in the county government not doing their training and then just thinking they can forge documents and get away with it. And you would think Mr. Hess, after all that Rowdy Hayden went through a couple of years ago, maybe he would have not done this. But then again, maybe he just saw the slap on the wrist, the reprimand that Rowdy got, and that at the end of the day, Rowdy Hayden was able to get away with nothing more than a reprimand, and maybe that sent the signal to other employees that it's okay to do this. I don't know. I would be curious to see if there are other county employees, because I'm sure if these high-profile ones are doing it, there's probably other people that are doing it as well, and these are just the ones that got caught. But I think it really points to, and I'll just throw the caveat out up front, I don't think every county employee is corrupt. I think there's a lot of good people that work for the county, and we do have some good elected officials. But I do think in certain areas of the county government, there are some systemic ethical issues. There's issues with nepotism. There's conflicts of interest. And here we have another issue of forging documents. And that's a problem. And so I really think that the commissioners and the county government needs to look into this more. And I think we need some increased transparency when it comes to these sorts of things. But this is really indicative of an ethical problem in our county government, and our county taxpayers, county citizens really deserve better, and they deserve more transparency, in my opinion. And so, we really need to fight for that. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about today is the May 7th election. And so I'm sure that you are well aware of Congress municipal elections going on, and there's a few other things. But I want to make sure, Okay, do not confuse the May 7th election with the primary runoff election, which is later on in May. Okay, totally separate things. You're going to need to vote in May, and then you're going to come May 7th, and then you're going to need to come back and vote again towards the end of May for the runoff. Two totally different elections, not related. Okay, and so you may be thinking, well, if I don't live in the city of Conroe, or if I don't live in one of these school districts like Willis ISD or Montgomery ISD, where there's a massive bloated tax hiking school bond to go vote against, well, then there's nothing really for me to do. Well, actually, every voter in the state will be able to weigh in on something on May 7th, because there are two statewide ballot propositions that are proposed constitutional amendments. So very important. And so anybody in the state who's an eligible voter will be able to weigh in on these things. And both of them have to do with property taxes. And so, if you have any strong feelings on property taxes, then you should definitely be sure to go to the polls on May 7th and let them know what you think, especially in light of, I'm sure, especially this time of year, people have some thoughts about taxes. I know I do. And so the first proposition essentially would create, they always word these things really complex, and you need like a lawyer to understand these propositions. I think that's something that needs to be reformed in this state. We need like simpler language. A fifth grader should be able to read these propositions. But anyways, the first one has to do with people who are over 65 or on disability or disabled, and so it gives them a sort of property tax relief. And then the second proposition, it would affect more people, and it would basically raise the homestead exemption from $25,000 to $40,000. And so that would be some property tax relief. Now, between these two reforms, it's honestly probably not enough to lower your property taxes, because despite our legislators saying every session, well, we just delivered property tax relief for you. No, they didn't. Property taxes continue to go up every time somehow. And so, until we get some serious, real structural reform to the way we do property taxes in this state, they're going to continue to go up. But there are these little things, these relief proposals like these two amendments, and maybe it'll keep your property taxes from going up a little bit less. And so you won't have to pay quite as much in property taxes, but you're still going to be paying more than last year, most likely. So I'd encourage everybody to get out and vote for these propositions. And it's not going to affect funding for local governments. Not that I really care about that, but the state is going to reimburse like the school districts for revenue that is lost. And the state has huge surpluses that are just sitting around that they've taxed from us. And so why not use that for property tax relief? But again, long term, we do need a more permanent, a more extensive overhaul of our property tax system. I mean, it is just insane. If you look at one of those nationwide maps of states with highest property taxes, I mean, we are right up there with, high tax blue states like California and New Jersey in terms of how high our property taxes are. It's out of control. And so I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. What we need to do is phase out the school M&O property tax over the course of maybe 10 years. And maybe you have enough growth coming in that you can do that with existing revenue. Maybe you do need to close some of the loopholes in the sales tax and bring in more sales tax revenue. And of course, I would always like to see more spending cuts, but it's going to take a more systematic, serious reform like that. And so that's what we need to be pushing our legislators to do next session. And don't be fooled when they say, well, we fixed the property tax issue, because they've been saying that for years. And have your property taxes gone down? I don't think so. So let's hold their feet to the fire and see if we can get some real change. So with that, That will conclude our episode of the Citizen Journal show today. Again, I want to remind you, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like, share, comment. I want to hear from you. And until next time, hope you have a great week.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and ownership of MCP.TV.